Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Before we begin, let's go around and introduce ourselves by our first name. And if you're here for the first time, let us know that. My name's Paul.
Bob.
George.
Carl.
Sujin. Dean. Ty.
Surrey Proper. I'm just visiting for the day. I'm making film at the FWA.
Michael. Darren. Todd.
Snake.
Charles.
Paul.
Howard. Art.
Peter.
Jack. Jay. Richard. Ricardo.
Clint.
David.
Peter. Steve.
Bill. Max. Cass.
Our speaker today is Furyu Nancy Schroeder, and she's with the San Francisco Zen, has been with the San Francisco Zen Center since 1976. Was ordained a Buddhist priest in 1986, and is a dharma heir of Tenshin Reb Anderson. She's currently a tanto. Is that right? Tanto? Is that
Well,
right
it was,
pronunciation?
but I'm not in that job anymore.
Okay.
Yes, it's not.
Formerly, she was a tanto at Green Gulch Farm. And she will help facilitate a retreat at Lassiter Zen Mountain Center for LGBT people on June 10th through 12th, 2005. So welcome, Furyu Schroeder.
Thank you. Good morning. It's nice to be back. This is my third round. Some of you I recognize, the first two. So I'd like to start today with a poem that was given by Zen Master Dogen in the 13th century in a sermon that he gave called Uji, or Time Being, the Time Being. An ancient Buddha said, "For the time being, stand on top of the highest peak. For the time being, proceed along the bottom of the deepest ocean. For the time being, a wrathful deity with 3 heads and 8 arms. For the time being, an 8 or 16-foot golden Buddha. For the time being, a teacher's staff or whisk. For the time being, a pillar or lantern. For the time being, the sons of commoners, Jiang and Li. For the time being, the earth and sky." So this morning was a pretty good example of what I want to talk about today, this time being. I was going to be on time, and I was being on time, except that I forgot which number street got me to Bartlett. So I took 17th, and I was between Valencia and Mission, but there was no Bartlett. And I was thinking while I was sitting, it's a little bit like Harry Potter trying to get to Hogwarts. There was no way in. So I panicked a little bit because I was going to be on time, and I had 5 minutes left, and wasn't sure to go right or left. And then, as I was turning on Mission Street, I thought, you better drop it. You better just drop it, Maybe you're going to be late. And that was better. That helped. And sure enough, Bartlett eventually appeared. Even a parking place, the last one across the street. So, my experience is that time is never what I think it's going to be. Even though I have a watch that's very well calibrated, and likewise a calendar and a day timer, and that's actually how I was going to get here today, by all these agreements that I made months ago to be here at a certain time on a certain day. And that more or less works, but the fact of the hour that arises on this day, at this time, is nothing like what I think it's going to be. Never. Not even once, I think if I just get more clever about it, eventually it's going to be what I think it's going to be, but it's never what I think it's going to be. So even though I'm repeatedly exposed to this fact of my life, I invariably go into each situation anticipating it's going to be what I think. There's a poet who said, "I've never seen a garden." And what this means is that our ideas about things block our view of the actual thing. We can walk through a garden and not see what's actually there. You get into the garden and pretty soon, oh, that was my mother's favorite rose. All of these thoughts start to block our view of what's actually there. You don't see the aphids on the rose. So this is a very important teaching in Buddhism. And Master Dogen, called these two ways of our knowing the world. One is our thinking about the world, and the other is the actual world. These two beasts, which are quite different species from one another, he called these beasts thinking, the beast of thinking, and the beast of not thinking. And he said to his students, think not thinking. That was his meditation instruction. Think not thinking. And they said, with alarm, how do you think not thinking? And he said, non-thinking. Non-thinking. This is the essential art of meditation, of zazen, of life. So in the Buddha's teaching, this first beast, the beast of thinking, is considered to be a pure fiction, without exception. It's a fantasy. It's an illusion. And it's called an imputation. I think you all know what an imputation is. No. So imputation is something that you input on what's there. You put it in. Projection. So there's the world, and then there's your imputation on the world. It's like putting costumes on dolls. We dress them, and they always kind of look the way we like them to be dressed. You notice? The world shows up the way that you think about it. If you're angry, it's kind of an angry world. If you're happy, it's kind of a happy world. Whatever way you're going, it seems like the world's like that. Well, we begin to get suspicious. Where is the anger coming from? Where is the happiness coming from? Is it from the world? Or is it from within? Or is it both? Which beast? So this diagram that I brought today is called the Wheel of Birth and Death. And basically it's a diagram of the beast of thinking. The Buddhist meditators, starting with our first teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, was studying this wheel of thinking in his own mind on the occasion of his awakening. So this is a very important thing for us to come to understand, because it's true for us as well. Each of us thinks pretty much in this same pattern, unless we're so disassociated that you can't even talk to anybody else. And there are people that are caught in those states as well. So, the second beast, so the first beast is the beast of thinking, this costuming that we do, this imputation. The second beast is reality itself, which we're all familiar with, and it basically comes in the form of pops and crackles and oozes and twitters and electric shocks, and it's the world of a direct experience. And this world, which is not articulate, comes in through our senses, through our hearing, before our eyes, on the tips of our tongues, up through our noses. It's vague, it's indescribable. As soon as you start describing it, you've gone into here. You're back in the world of thinking. So this world of direct experience is the world of just listening, just looking, just being, the time being. And this is the world that we're least familiar with, although it's totally what we are. We're much more familiar with the world of thinking, with the beast of thinking. We have been trained to think. And it's become the dominant form of our life. This other beast is, for most of us, is kind of scary. How do you think not thinking? Non-thinking. There's an old Zen saying that words can never reach it. And the it is this world of fuzzy direct experience, the loom and shuttle of creation itself, continuously incorporating the forms of spring. And creation itself is beyond the realm of our customs, our traditions, and our beliefs. She won't abide. Our imputations. So, making friends of these two beasts, of reality itself and what we think about reality, is the work of the Buddhas and of the Bodhisattvas, of the poets, the sages, and the saints through all time. That's what they've been doing in their alchemical workshops, trying to make some relationship between reality itself and words or language. Words don't reach it. I think you all know the phrase from the 60s. Some of you, well, I'm sure, weren't even born yet, but you probably heard it passed up the line. Be here now. This is Ram Dass's title of his book. Ram Dass was a Harvard professor who went and became an Eastern mystic. So be here now is a very profound instruction. There's something about us that continuously tries to escape this trap of being here now, as if we actually could. It's like a mousetrap. Be here now. Be here now. So mousetraps are very good, actually, particularly mental mousetraps. Trying to get ourselves to stay with reality and see how thinking's what tries to get away. That's the mouse's tail. We'd rather give up our tail than to be trapped in the present moment. So I would say that the heart of Buddhist tradition is the Buddha's willingness as a person just like us to sit in the midst of the present moment without any intention whatsoever of getting away. I will not abandon this seat until I understand the cause of suffering. This was the Buddha's great vow. I won't move until I understand what's going on here. So I would like to suggest that it's in the trap of the present moment that the beasts, the true marriage of the beasts, take place. The beast of thinking and not thinking, of form and emptiness, of light and dark, sound and silence. You and me. Right there, there's no separation. There's no line of division. There's no differences. This is the ultimate reality. Complete. Moment by moment. Nothing missing. This is another piece of the sermon by Master Dogen from Uji. The way the self arrays itself is the form of the entire world. See each thing in this entire world as a moment of time. The self setting itself out in array sees itself. This is the understanding that the self is time. Know that in this way there are myriads of forms and hundreds of grasses throughout the entire earth, and yet each grass and each form itself is the entire earth. The study of this is the beginning of practice. When you are at this place, there is just one grass. There is just one form. There is understanding of form and no understanding of form. This is thinking and not thinking. There is understanding of grass and no understanding of grass. Since there is nothing but just this moment, the time being is all the time there is. Grass being, form being, are both time. Each moment is all being, is the entire world. Reflect now whether any being or any world is left out of the present moment. So this is Dogen's poetic exempling of the Buddha's original teaching that our life is a creation of our mind. Our life is a creation of our mind. Our thoughts of yesterday create our life of today. Our thoughts of today create our life of tomorrow. Our life is a creation of our mind. This is from the Dhammapada, the first teaching, one of the oldest teachings of the Buddha. And I often will say to my daughter, the problem is not in getting an iPod. The problem is in your noodle. She doesn't. She just goes, Mom, I don't want to hear that Buddhist stuff. So it helps me, however, even if it doesn't help her, to remember that when the Buddha sat down under the tree, he wasn't, he didn't have a lot of entertainments with him. He didn't have any books or any electronic games or any companion. He sat alone under the tree, which, like it or not, each of us has to do. Each of us has to sit alone under the tree of our life, our single life, and understand it for ourselves. We can listen to other people, get the tapes, read the books, but ultimately each of us has to come to our own peace with what it is to be human, to be alive, to be single. A blade of grass. So even though on that day the Buddha sat under the tree, it was probably a very nice day. I don't remember reading that it was stormy or cold. It was India in the fall, probably quite warm, and the birds were singing and the bees were buzzing, and still this young man was plagued with visions, with tormentors. He saw demons and he felt rocks being hurled at him by hecklers. He was insulted. And he was also seduced by beautiful young women and young men dancing before him. And still he sat there with his heart aching. And he waited. He waited and he looked at this pattern of his own mind. And then Mara, the evil one, appeared in the clearing and said, you better give up or I will destroy you. And finally, after sitting with his own mind long enough, the Buddha understood this was an illusion. And he said to Mara, I know who you are. And Mara said, no, you don't. He said, but I do. You are myself. And with that, Mara vanished. And the birds were singing, the bees were buzzing, and it was a nice autumn day in India 2,500 years ago. And this young man was no longer tormented by his own mind. And then he became what we know as the Buddha. He was awake. He was awake from the illusions, the dreams that were plaguing him, just as they plague us. In such a place, at such a time, one's mind naturally turns away from war and into peace. Many centuries later in Japan, a samurai entered a cave where a Zen master was meditating and demanded to be taught. And the master said, no, I won't teach you. And the samurai pulled his sword and said, don't you know I'm the one who can kill you? And the master said, don't you know I'm the one who can be killed? And then the samurai faced his own shame and threw down his sword and begged the teacher to help him. And the teacher did. So this is the courageous path of peace, the path of the one who can be killed. Like those fine gentlemen, those fine black gentlemen in the South who walked in their Sunday suits along the streets in Alabama and Mississippi, walking in hate-filled streets as the ones who could be killed. And they're still walking, walking in the north and the east and the west and the south. And where are they today? They're not in here. They're not at Zen Center. Are we ashamed? Maybe not yet. So the good news is that the human mind can be transformed from a mind of hatred to a mind of peace and joy. The bad news is it only happens one by one. Each of us, one by one. So that's why I brought this map for us today, is that this is the way. This is the way illusions are formed, but it's also the way that we can break out. It's the map. It shows us where to place the mousetraps. And this is called the 12-fold chain of causation, or the wheel of birth and death. And there's another version of it, a beautiful one here, that hangs in the hall of this building. You might have a chance sometime just to stand and look at all the pictures if you haven't done that before. It's these paintings were done for pre-literate society, so people didn't know how to read when Buddhism first began. There wasn't any writing. The Buddha wasn't at a time when there was writing. So they drew pictures of these very important ideas, concepts. So I know you can't see this, and you're going to have to maybe just look later, but I'll tell you what I'm referring to here. Well, first of all, this monster-looking being, I had always heard was, what do we say, David? Yama, right. So, king of death. Right. And then I was talking with the Tibetan sacred dancers. lovely man who does this most amazing, he enacts the sutras with his body, and they're just, it's like the most beautiful thing I think I've ever seen from dancing. Anyway, he said, no, that's Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. So, really? He said, oh yes, the Avalokiteshvara had been told that you can only save one person at a time, but he decided, he got tired doing that, and decided to save everybody at once. So he took hold of the wheel of birth and death, and it got stuck in his mouth. And that's why he's so grimacing. I kind of like that. I thought it was a great story. So don't try that. Don't try to save everybody at once. One at a time. So this wheel is spinning. It's turning, and this is about the inside of our minds. And there's something familiar. Have you ever noticed how familiar your mind is? There's something clicking, as it goes around again. Like, boy, I've done this before. I thought this before. That's how I get angry. I always get angry like that, So this is our mind, and it's a pattern of repeating, recycle. It's not recycling, it's cycling. And it's known as samsara, or endless. Samsara actually means endless circling. And it's like a little rat in a cage. And it starts with, at the very top, the pictures around the edge of the circle are the 12-fold chain of dependent co-arising or causation. So this one leads to this one depends on this one. All of these depend on the one before them. They're links in a chain, bondage. So the first link is called ignorance. And ignorance is fundamental. We're born with it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. We're born ignorant, and we're ignorant of the fact that we're not separate. That this world of be here now is actually where we are and who we are, and it's not separate. You're completely embedded in reality. Always have been, always will be. There's no way out, no way in. So things are fine. That's the ultimate conclusion is everything's just fine. Just relax. Everything's been taken care of already. Somebody else got the check. So but we don't see it that way. It doesn't feel like that. And that's true. And we have to admit it, that it doesn't feel like that. And because of ignorance. And ignorance has to do with an illusion of separation between ourselves and the world around us. We really think we're isolated, alone, unlovable, whatever you think. We think it. We've all thought it. And those thoughts basically are the basis for that idea of separation is the first cause which leads to karmic formations. These are patterns from what you've done before. That's why it becomes familiar. You have a tendency, due to your ideas of separation, to do a couple of things. Maybe you try to be tough about it, or maybe you try to get somebody to take care of you. There's all different strategies that we've tried, and when we're little especially. But now you've got some strategy you're stuck with, same strategy over and over again. So these are karmic formations, and there's a little potter making pots. And then karmic formations or tendencies of mind lead then to the monkey in the tree, which is consciousness. Okay, now here I am. There's kind of singularity to it, as though I'm really here as a single entity, conscious. And consciousness then, in dependence on consciousness, we get the 5 skandhas. So the 5 skandhas are form, feeling, perception, impulse, consciousness, basically just the set that we call ourself. Body, a mind, sensations, perceptions, and impulses to act. So it's kind of simple. It's not that complicated. When you say 5 skandhas, it sounds like, oh no, there's like chemistry problems. But actually, it's really just you and the different parts of you that you can pretty easily see. Your emotionality, your tendency to do things, and how you see things, your notions about things. So then the skandhas create what's pictured here as a fortress with a moat and a wall and little windows peeking out at the world. So that's pretty familiar. That's the self. And the self, when it encounters another fortress that it perceives as outside, makes one of three decisions. I like it, I don't like it, or I don't know yet whether I like it or not. Right? That's pretty accurate. And then the next one, so fortress to fortress. In this picture, these two fortresses seem to like each other because they're kissing. And under a tree. In this case, male and female. And they're kissing, and this is called contact. Fortress to fortress. Now the next one, so far so good. It's really not such a problem yet. Now, after contact comes feelings. That was great. Or I don't like this contact. I don't want any more contact. Go away now. Thank you. Stop. So feelings are either positive, negative, or neutral. I like it, I want it to keep happening. I don't like it, I want it to stop, or I don't know yet. I'm confused. So feelings are pictured with a person with an arrow in the eye. Very hard to avoid noticing you're having feelings. They're big. They're penetrating. So this is good. This is a good drawing. Having feelings. I'm having a feeling. Now, the weak links in this circle are right after feelings is a weak link. So this is a place to put a mousetrap. The other place to put a mousetrap is at ignorance. This is a weak link too. It's actually not true. You're not separate. You can see that. You can love. You can give it up. So this is one spot, and I have a little story about that one, weak link. And then the other spot where it's a weak link is right after feelings. Just stop at feelings. If you don't, then you go to the next one, which is grasping. I do like it. So the picture of grasping is a guy in a pub with a bottle of sake, and he's asking for another one. I like that feeling. Can I have another one, please? And so it goes until he's pretty intoxicated. Now he's there's no way back now. This is not a stopping place. This is you're going to have a hangover. Because the next one after that is grasping. And this one, the monkey's filling baskets with apples. We switch from sake to apples. But it's just grasping, more and more and more. How much money? How much clothes? How many boyfriends? How many what? You're hooked. You're in an addictive pattern. And then the next one is birth or becoming. And that's they're in bed together. So it's happening. It's really happening. And then the next one is birth, and then after birth is aging, sickness, and death. Because whatever's born ages and dies. That's the law. Nothing's permanent. All those things that you thought were going to last forever, I'll love you forever, those words we say, they don't last forever. Roses don't last forever. Nothing does. No thoughts. In fact, they're rather fast. In fact. And we don't like impermanence. It's not our preference. We would like things to be permanent. That's part of our ignorance. Is we don't like reality the way it's dished up. And if we settle with the way it actually is, we are much happier. So the story around the ignorance link is that I was listening on NPR to it was an organization. There was an organization formed to protect people against hate crimes. So I think it's called Not in Our Neighborhood or Not in Our Town or something like that. Maybe some of you know. But the people in the local towns, when something happens, like just happened in Mill Valley around a gay student in the Tampa Pius High School, the community got around her and said, "This isn't okay. You can't do this." And there's now a banner in the Tampa Pius High School bell tower saying we are tolerant. TAM means, tolerant and generous and empathetic. And I thought, well, that's good. So the town is saying, no, you cannot do this. So anyway, these people were talking about these groups in various towns. And some man called in and said he had been, during the Civil Rights days, had been one of the people throwing rocks. He was in the Ku Klux Klan and used to throw rocks at civil rights workers. And he said, he's an old man, and he said, and now both of my daughters are married to, are in interracial marriages, and all my grandchildren are mixed ethnic background, and I love them very much. You know, there's kind of a pause. Everyone was processing. And then the person from the radio program said, well, how did that happen? And he said, my minister told me that my behavior was not in keeping with my faith in Jesus Christ. I was not behaving like a Christian. And he said, you know, I just came out of a family where we had certain ideas and traditions of hatred and so on. And he said, I needed somebody to talk to me and tell me. And so this was quite important. This is breaking the chain at ignorance. So this man was able to turn from hatred to love. You know, it's not a strong link, but before it breaks, it's impossible. It has to break. So what opens that heart? You know, could be some words from a minister or some insight of your own, but whatever it is, to break the link of ignorance is one possibility. And then again, the other one, which is the one most of us who end up as meditators are forced to accept, is sitting with our feelings. And I've worked with a lot of, I've been a beginning sitter for a long time. I always feel like I am. Every time I sit down, I feel like a beginning sitter. You know, there it is again. Blah, 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 you know. But I also talk with beginning sitters a lot, and it makes you crazy to sit down and be quiet and not move for 40 minutes, twice in a row. It makes you crazy, and for a long time, it makes you really crazy. Are you sure this is useful? I mean, what is this doing for me? It's making me worse. I feel much more irritable. You say, you're getting it. You know, you're starting to enter. That's what you're beginning to see. What's going on in here? You know? And then, little by little, the relief and the cooling of that mind becomes so much better than the stress of, you know, having to sit that you agree to sit. Because it actually works. And because it breaks the chain at this link of feelings. I don't want to sit. Okay, fine, sit down. It'll change. Sit for a week, it'll really change. You won't have anything left. You'd just be like a little gumball. And sure enough, you know, people come out of Sesshin, or I had a couple of students recently come back from Tassajara, and I knew them very well from their, you know, arrival days when they first came in off the streets. They're pretty tough cookies, you know. Oh, this is stupid and that's stupid, and I hate those people, and why do we do this here, and you know, and they just go on and on. Very critical minds, very sharp, bright, lovely people. I mean, nice people, but very irritable. And they both came back from Tassajara, and I saw them out on the pathway. They'd been there for only 3 months. It doesn't take that long. And there were these little puddles. And I said, you really got cooked, didn't you? And they go, uh-huh. That's good. That's good. So this is Buddhist wisdom. These are old teachings, old traditions. People have been, you know, helping other people understand how to get out of their traps for thousands of years. You know, this is medicine. So the wheel represents both the diagnosis and the cure, you know, for what it is that's causing our suffering. Oh, so the last thing I wanted to mention is that these 6 slices of pie in the center here are basically psychological states that we all know very well. We've all been through them all, and probably today you'll go through most of them. At the top is the gods. And I think we all know that one. You know, everything's fine, the food's good, weather's good. You know, you're having a lovely time with your friends. You have plenty of money in your ATM account. So this is the realm of the gods. And over here on their right are the fighting gods who are trying to become gods by attacking the gods. I'll get your money. I'll get your stuff. I'll get your girlfriend and I'll get everything you have. You know, so there's these warriors over here. Greedy, they're mad, and they're after it. They're on the make. So those are the fighting gods, or the fighting demons. And they make the life for the gods a little unpleasant. You just get it all set up real well, and then they come after you. Somehow, some way, they raise the rent, or they do something to you. Below the gods, directly below, is hell. And that's where the gods go without fail. Because being a god is impermanent. Everything's impermanent. And it's hard for us when the God part ends. So we tend to slip right down to here. The good part about hell is that it's also impermanent. It doesn't last. And that's something you can remember next time you're in hell, is that it doesn't last. It's going to pass. You got to believe that. Or people hurt themselves, or worse, eliminate themselves. So hell doesn't last, but it's very unpleasant. And the good thing about hell is that people will be nice to you when you're in hell. They'll call and see how you're doing and so. So on either side of hell, all of these in the three lower ones are undesirable. Below the fighting gods are even less than gods are the animals. Animals basically just eat and have sex, and they don't really think about consequences at all. They're just living in the. It's kind of like the here and now, but it's without any sense of responsibility for others, or they're just doing what feels right, for themselves. So this is a lower realm. And on the other side of hell is the hungry ghosts for whom it's never enough. They can't get enough nourishment. And they have very thin throats and large swollen abdomens. And they cannot get enough nourishment. So these are psychological states that we all know very well. And the last one, last but not least, is the human realm over here, off to the side, which is where our great hope lies. To be human beings means to be involved in work, in thinking, in planning, and in practicing. When you're a god, you don't have much motive to practice because things are just so perfect. But when you're a human being, things aren't perfect. They're kind of okay. It's not so bad, but it's not so great. It's in between. And this is where the lectures are happening, the people are sitting listening to the dharma talks, and they're plowing, they're farming and growing vegetables and things like that. They're working and they're taking care of each other. And the children are being educated, and the commonwealth and the wealth are in balance through just laws and so on. So, the human realm basically is the realm where liberation occurs. Now the trick is that nobody gets to leave the human realm alone. You have to wait until everybody has adequate prosperity to see the limitations of a life based in material gain. And from there, you can begin to see what a spiritual life might be like. A life that studies and understands how this works, so it can basically devote itself to helping others to do the same. So even though the Buddha escaped from this wheel, he escaped by coming out here and looking back at it. He didn't escape by going to some other place. And he stayed in relationship to it and was very tempted to not go next step after that, to just say, well, now I'm good. But actually, coming back to help others was really what the Buddha's story was about. He didn't just take care of himself. He basically devoted whatever was left of his human life to talking about this and talking with people and resting and hanging out. I think he had a pretty nice life from what I can tell. Enough of everything, but not too much. So, I wonder if you have any questions or comments? Or yes. Oh, the center, yeah, that's the drive wheel. Greed, hate, and delusion. The basic beginningless greed, beginningless hatred. So if you say, well, how come this works like that? The answer is beginningless greed, hate, and delusion. That's part of our inheritance as well. And how we respond when we feel greedy or hateful determines which side of these 6 realms you're going to land in. When you're being greedy, if you resist, renounce that, taking more than your share, then you'll come up to the upper realms. You'll feel better. If you hoard and so on, you probably end up in the hungry ghost realm. So this little picture around the side is that people, depending on their choices, when they feel greedy or when they feel hatred or the confusion, they either start going up. These are like they're not angels, they're little bodhisattvas going up into these realms. And on this side, there are demons going down. So we do have free will in this system, as in the Christian teachings. You get to choose which way you're going to go. And then accept the outcome. There was a murderer called Angulimala, who, after his conversion away from murder and became a monk, the people some years later stoned him to death. And he didn't object. He knew that this was the cause of his being killed by them was his own actions. So he had no complaints.
Questions about the animal realm. It seems to me that the animal realm is a lot what people project onto it, Some people consider some animals gods, cat in Egypt and so forth. And learn a lot from animals about the way that most animals accept and never hurt you. It's just kind of that realm is kind of confused. Can they create karma? Can they burn off karma?
Well, this animal realm is actually a metaphor for a human state of mind. Not really talking about animals. We don't know about animals, except the part of them that's us. We have a big animal. We can see that. Not so different. They eat when they're hungry, sleep when they're tired.
They just like all the
yeah. We come by it honestly, as do they. But we don't hold them accountable in the same way we hold each other accountable for our action. We don't send them to prison for killing, But humans are held accountable by this system.
In some depictions of the wheel, there's a Buddha within each of the 6.
Yeah, this one too. Yeah. They come. That's the vow. Is the Buddhas or the Bodhisattvas?
No matter what you're feeling, there's always the possibility of both.
That's right. And you, as a Bodhisattva, agree to go into these realms. If someone that is in hell, you agree to go there. And each of these Buddhas or Bodhisattvas has some appropriate offering, like they have water or some kind of nourishment for the hungry ghosts, and they're playing music for the fighting demons. Wouldn't you rather sing us, huh? So the appropriate medicine or skillful means.
In the animal realm, isn't it a book where that's the thing they use?
Teaching?
Where,
Let me see.
I think I remember that, but that's their way to human.
It looks like the wisdom water. So it would be teachings. I can't see it as a book, but then
Way in the beginning of your talk, you mentioned both not knowing and also non-knowing. Are those synonymous? Are they different concepts?
They're different. They're very importantly different. So, you always know you're in a Buddhist discussion when you're dealing with dualities. So thinking and not thinking are dualistic.
Yes.
Right. Thinking and not thinking are dualistic. Non-thinking is the holder for the two of them. It's not thinking. Not thinking would be the opposite of thinking. Thinking is the opposite of not thinking. Non-thinking isn't the opposite of either one. It's the placeholder for both of them. Think, not thinking. What kind of thinking is that? Non-thinking. It's the essential art of Zazen. It's not thinking, and it's not thinking. It's more like being in the middle. Not taking sides.
I'm not trying to be cute with words, but is there such a thing as not thinking, not thinking?
Not thinking, not thinking?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of how you can think of not thinking.
Well, that was what they said to Dogen.
Yeah.
How do you think not thinking?
Yeah.
He didn't say not thinking, not thinking. But maybe that would help to find a way into what is that state of experience, mental, what would equilibrium be in a world of you, in your mindscape, that's neither thinking nor not thinking, not eliminating one, and not, grasping the other. It's kind of fluid and unattached. Like, they say, it's not a matter of having no views. Like it says, Buddhists hold no views for or against anything. It doesn't say they don't have them. They don't hold them. This is holding views. This is not holding views. Like the scales of justice. So that's the challenge for us, is how to have our views without making them into something that becomes a source of violence or conflict or distance, separation. It's a skill. Mediators learn how to do that. Hold both sides. And still come to a decision. You still have to come up with a settlement of some kind. But not at someone's expense.
We should stop here. This is a good place to stop for you, Schroeder.
Can you answer a few questions afterwards in case there's some unanswered questions?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Announcement?
This coming Saturday, as last week too, we're doing our annual wildflower hike to Point Reyes Chimney Rock. It's the best time of year, and this place is like a famous place for wildflowers. So it's really pretty. The hike itself is not strenuous; it's about a mile each way, but it's a long drive, so it's an all-day thing. We're meeting here at 9 o'clock on Saturday, carpooling. Because you have some flyers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll put it by the Dharma board.
Okay, that'd be
Just
great.
leave it here.
That'd be great. So, and it's also talked about in the newsletter too. So, if you're interested, you can call me or show up another call. It'll be a lot. It could be fun. It's a potluck too, so bring some food.
There's also some flyers about the LGBT retreat that Furyu is facilitating at the Dharma board. And I don't know if you'd like to say a few words about this retreat. I mean, I know some people here are thinking of going.
Yeah, great. That would be the best thing I could say is please come. It would be great to have as many of you who can. It's Tassajara, if you haven't been there, is a magnificent place. And once you have a relationship with it, you can go whenever you like. I mean, I think you would feel like it's someplace that's available to you. If you haven't been there yet, you may not feel that. So this is a way to enter, and I know you, well, sort of, and so I'd be happy to be your host this Tassajara. And Miolehi, I may have spoken here. He's the Hartford Street Zen Center. He and I were ordained together, so we're very, very close. And we've done this a couple of times, and it's quite a joy. Thank you for the chance.
there's a potluck on the 22nd of May, so put that on the calendar. And there's some flyers out there. And if anyone is interested in hosting a potluck in the coming months, you can email Schroeder.
I checked the mail today, and there are lots of announcements from different organizations. I put them out on the coffee table, and you can look through them and see if there's anything you're interested in. There was also an announcement from Community Thrift that normally it would be a check, but there was nothing sold in the last quarter. And so just to remind people that if they donate things to Community Thrift, we can be specified as one of the organizations to receive some money.
Yeah, if you spread the word, sometimes we get a rather decent check from them. So if you spread the words to your friends, if they bring something there to mention Gay Buddhist Fellowship, that would help.
Sarah, what's today?
Yeah, Cass.
All right, I'm your host today, so please stay and join the fellowship of tanto. There's tea and lunches. If you have some tea, please watch the fast. There's a dharma bowl. Please be as generous as you can in helping with some of its expenses. Suggest $5, more or less per kid. And there's a sign-up list for people who want to go on the email or mailing list.
Okay, and with Snake.
With regard to Community Thrift, there may have been a change in the past 6 months or so, but in case anyone's contributed and, we didn't get any money, they used to have a minimum. I don't know if they still do.
And would someone volunteer to go around with the Dharma bowl outside after we leave this room? Okay, thanks, Dave. Bruce Schroeder, we end in a circle. Do you want to end with the closing, or I can read it off of our newsletter? What would you like to do?
Oh, please, go ahead. I'd like to hear you.
By the power and the truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, and live believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.